For over 4 years, British troops have been fighting in Iraq. While we continue to debate this controversial occupation, the ordinary soldier's voice is seldom heard.
Your adrenaline just can go on all the time, you didn't know what's going to happen.
I went 2 days after my 25th birthday, and I remember that there were 2 soldiers that had the birthday on the same day. However, they were only turning 18.
Now the National Theatre of Scotland's production Black Watch has brought into sharp relief what Iraq is like for the troops on the ground.
Oh, the very first day on parade was where a lot of young recruits. This is the best fun you'll ever have, ever.
The Black Watch play has been hailed a triumph. It is the story of this military deployment told from the soldier's perspective.
War heroes, you boys! Who the fuck gets to say that anymore?
Fantastic. It's a brilliant piece of work.
The actors were fantastic, so moving.
Knockout, I thought it was fantastic.
Many of the words in this play are based on real-life testimony. This film revisits some of the soldiers whose experiences informed the play, and others who also fought with the Black Watch in Iraq.
When the mortar fire was coming in, you heard it getting closer and closer, and you're thinking, if one of these hit me, that's it. Again.
When I first come home, everybody was like, oh, you've been to Iraq, Ken, what was it like, what was it like? Did you kill anybody, did you kill anybody?
November 2004, the Black Watch is sent to Iraq to support the occupation of Basra and the south of the country. At the same time, rumors are circulating in the UK that the regiment is about to be amalgamated, despite 300 years of history.
The new army structure will deliver an army fit for the challenge of the 21st century. It will preserve the vital traditions and ethos, and it will improve the lives of soldiers and their families.
The Defence Secretary is nothing but a backstabbing coward.
As a political storm breaks out, the artistic director of Scotland's newly formed National Theatre is inspired.
I was reading the paper, and that was at the time when there was all the discussion about the amalgamation of the Black Watch Regiment, and it just struck me immediately that this is a microcosm of something enormous.
There's been speculation that the government is rethinking its proposals to merge some regiments.
How shameful it is to treat the Black Watch and their families in this way at a time when they face such great danger in Iraq.
Vicky Featherstone phoned me up and said, are you following the story of the Black Watch in Iraq? And obviously I was following the story of the Black Watch in Iraq because I'm from Fife, and it was big news. Rather than commissioning writers, Vicky had said she wanted to give people stories they could follow to see if anything grew out of those stories that we could then turn into pieces of work.
Traditions and ethos.
I was approached by the author to discuss with him various issues that he wanted to write about. And the amalgamation of the regiments was a matter of great controversy in Scotland.
As the conflict in Iraq developed, it became clear that this was a story worth telling. Like countless other British Army campaigns, the Black Watch were at the spearhead of the early fighting in a war the Americans dubbed Operation Iraqi Freedom.
There may well be tough days ahead.
Greg felt that the Black Watch Regiment is an example of Scottish history in relation to English history, in terms of all the kind of imperialist attacks that Britain has undertaken, and the irony of using the Scottish Highland warrior to do that. And at the final moment, you leave them in the biggest foreign policy disaster ever.
This controversial deployment forms the backbone of the play. As the Black Watch faced suicide bombs and insurgents' bullets abroad, it also faced being killed off at home. 300 years of regimental history on the brink of possible extinction.
Lord God, our Father, we ask your blessing upon this, the battle group of the Black Watch.
The Black Watch regimental family has always drawn its new recruits from the areas of Fife, Perthshire and Tayside. For 3 centuries, fathers and sons, friends and neighbours from these towns and villages have fought and died for this proud regiment.
When I was in the Black Watch, I think something like 92% of the soldiers were from either Perthshire, Angus or Fife.
We started before Culloden. We didn't really ken when. 1715, maybe 1725. When Scotland was an independent nation, we were mercenaries to half of fucking Europe. But it was in 1739 that we really threw a lot in with the British.
It was a very special regiment, not just for Scotland, but for Britain. The first time people got used to people wearing kilts, to bagpipes, and of course, because these things were illegal in Scotland, it was a great way of showing identity.
Well, they let us keep our own weapons, eh? Our kilts and our bagpipes. And they told us we would never have to serve abroad. Ah well, that's the fucking army for you.
They basically took the Highland chiefs and put them in as the officers, so it was quite literally a tribal grouping.
George III decided we deserved to wear a red vulture feather in our hats. The red hackle. We got it for the recapture of 2 French cannons in a little village in Flanders in 1795. Which, to be honest, didn't really seem like a very big fucking deal at the time, eh?
When you're on parade and you're like your full uniform, your kilt and everything, and you've got everybody watching you, that makes you stand up and say, here, I'm somebody here.
Is the history important?
Aye.
They drum it into you for the first day.
Fucking non-fucking stop. Aye, but it's a regiment, eh? I mean, that's what it is. It's history, right? It's the golden thread. That's what all the old-timers go on about. That is what connects the past to the present to the future.
In my case, I was the 4th generation to join the Black Watch. My father joined with his only brother. My father was wounded in Normandy. His brother was wounded in Alamein and then killed in Sicily. So he lost his only relative. His father, his grandfather were also in the Black Watch.
Ye can talk about your first royals. Scottish Fusiliers. Your Aberdeen militia.
There's a moment where they suddenly begin to sing, and you can just suddenly feel, you know, this whole weight of history behind a regiment like the Black Watch, and this beautiful sound of men's voices singing together in harmony, of course, makes you think of this relationship that they develop, you know, in battle, under fire.
Oh, the gallant 42.
You fight for your pals. When you've got a big group of pals, they form a platoon, and then you've got more pals, they form a company. You have more and more pals, they form a battalion, and then that forms a regiment, and that's the regimental family.
Was we a lot of young recruits?
I think soldiers in Iraq, if you ask them, what did you fight for? Did you fight for your Queen and country? Nobody does that anymore. I apologise if that offends anybody, but nobody does that.
I fought for the regiment, for the pride of the regiment, and pride in myself, and also to make sure that my friends were okay.
You fight for the Black Watch. You fight for the red hackle that's on your bonnet. From the minute you put on your bonnet, you know you're at home. You're with the family.
I was really, really proud to be in the Black Watch. It wasn't just like being in the army, it was just a big family. My father died when I was 14 and I went into care and there was nothing for me, so I just says, right, I'll join the army. I went along, spoke to a boy. I think it was 2 months later, I was away doing my training at 16-year-old, so it was like the last chance I could give myself, really. Yeah. Then I would never have turned to drugs or anything. I've never done anything like that, but I probably would have ended up in jail or something.
At the age of 18, David Ironside was posted to Iraq.
I didn't really know what to expect, but as soon as I got off that plane and the air hit me, it was roasting, it was like opening an oven.
I remember a lot of the jocks just thinking, you know, God, how hot was this? And it was, you know, it was only going to get hotter.
Everything just hits you all at once, like the culture, the heat. It opens your eyes, it was like, oh, it's got to get worse,
Rory Stewart served as a Black Watch infantry officer before joining the Foreign Office. After the invasion of Iraq, he became deputy governor of 2 provinces in the south of the country.
You're looking, of course, at a culture in which most people, particularly the tribal sheikhs, are still dressing in full robes. People are paddling around in boats, fishing with tridents. And I think for a young man coming out of the middle of Dunfermline or wherever, they're going to feel this is a pretty strange environment.
The Black Watch battle group were among the first soldiers into the south of the country as the British Army fought their way into the city of Basra.
From a land which has got highlands and mountains and lochs, and it was just this massive expanse of sand. It was the biggest beach I'd ever seen.
I thought that everybody in Iraq was out to get our skin, but then after you just get used to it.
Find hard cover, everyone.
As the war intensified, the Black Watch came under increasingly hostile fire from everything from small arms to rocket-propelled grenades.
I think the first time was an RPG. It was horrible. You just hear the bang and it shakes, and then it's like it sucks all the air out of you, ken. It was quite scary at the time.
As the Black Watch battle group fought to secure Basra, Julian McElhenney was one of the senior officers leading them.
The insurgents operate in a certain manner, albeit particularly random, but they do. So we knew what the threat was, what the potential for attacks were. However, you have no way of knowing the intensity, the ferocity.
By May 2003, the Americans were saying major combat operations were over. By June, the Black Watch were back in Scotland from their first tour, having sustained just 1 fatality.
When we came back from Iraq, the village all got together and had a big party and presented us with a plaque with our names and that up.
John Wilson was one of 5 men from the tiny fishing village of St. Monans who served together for the Black Watch in Iraq.
Well, they piped us down through the village. All the villagers followed us down to the town hall. It was really good, considering what the village thought of me before I joined the army. It was really proud, like.
But the wider British public was still sceptical about the war.
War is based on glory, and there is no glory in an illegal war. And these soldiers came back having been promised that they would, be the kind of belle of the ball at the Christmas parties that they came back to, and people were kind of ignoring them in the streets. And that, for me, was the kind of moment when emotionally, my heart broke for what we were doing to them.
David Ironside had experienced combat for the first time and came back from Iraq badly shaken. An army doctor declared him unfit for active service.
I was in a bad way. I was nervous, really badly. Even just walking down the street, I was just paranoid and scared all the time. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, put on a lot of medication. I felt worthless as well. I felt just a waste of space.
The depression soldiers suffered from when returning home from war figures strongly in the Black Watch play. The play cuts between scenes in Iraq and a bar in Fife, where squaddies like David are coming to terms with life back in their own communities.
What the fuck is it exactly you're wanting to ken?
What it's like in Iraq.
What it's fucking like, aye? Go to fucking Baghdad if you want to ken what it's fucking like.
No,
In the pub, the squaddies are being quizzed by a fictional playwright who's looking to dramatize their experiences.
What I mean is, I want to know about what you experienced.
I thought it was going to tell me something about the meaning of life, but he was too busy shooting folk.
So what did it tell you?
I didn't want to be in the army anymore.
When writer Gregory Burke was researching the play, he came to the Mayview Hotel in St. Monans to meet with John Wilson and other soldiers to discuss Iraq. The soldiers' words in the play reflect interviews like these conducted by Burke. But the playwright character is a twisted version of himself.
Let's imagine that
You're another writer.
Another writer, yeah.
I said to him, go and write those scenes, imagining you're that person,
yeah,
you're that writer.
liberal, left-wing kind of do-good writer.
Yeah, not a wanker, but...
No, but not not far off.
You get these young lasses to be researchers and then just fucking shag them.
I'll show you how to be a writer.
If you chow on this! He's quite hard on himself when he's got the writer on stage who's a bit effete, who's a bit silly. And I can understand why he did that. It's a nice comic device, and it keeps the writer basically in the background. He's there to get the soldiers talking.
You're a fucking user cunt, eh?
Are you going to use us?
You are, eh?
No.
You always feel there's an element of exploiting people.
Because I didn't mind, like.
I got quite anxious at one point about exploiting them and trying to find out things that are going to be mined for, my kind of personal advancement. Yeah, absolutely. And there was a bit where I kind of thought, I don't know how you do that ethically, but the way that you do it ethically is to show that.
What was it like getting fired at? It fucks people up big time. Rips them apart.
Siegfried Sassoon was asked what he would like to do when he was on home leave from the First World War, and he said, I'd like to drive down Oxford Street in a tank machine gunning people in the shops to let them know what I feel about what I have to do. And I think that's one of the things the guys feel, is that there's this dislocation between what they've been through and the understanding people have.
He's just doing his job, Stuarty!
And we were just doing our fucking job! I understand that, Stuarty. No, you fucking didn't.
As he researched the play, writer Gregory Burke also heard of David Ironside's story and the struggle he had had with post-traumatic stress.
I had been told there were certain people who had, psychological problems and certain things afterwards or during it. We kind of had an idea one character might have that.
Did anyone else get hurt? I broke my arm. Did you?
The character of Stuarty, played by Ali Craig, draws on elements of David's story.
Aye. Sierra Tango, 2245.
Yeah. Ali was so brilliant.
He was so amazing, and he became one of the characters who afterwards was struggling to cope with civilian life.
Walking fucking wounded,
I did all my research. As an actor, you don't really know what's happening and how people, what they actually go through. You just make educated guesses. It was really bizarre. Everything that I kind of did my guesswork with kind of fitted into his story really well, and I did look at his story a lot as well, but I didn't base the character solely on him.
You should write that down. I will. You should write it down with a broken fucking arm, though, eh?
Right! Come on, Stuarty, leave the boy alone now!
Let me break your arm and see if you can write it down with a broken fucking arm!
Come on, fuck it!
If he wants to ken what it's like in Iraq, can he? He has to feel some fucking pain! Come on.
It's not his fucking fault!
Come on! Fuck off!
Stuarty got signed off with depression after the first time we'd been out in Iraq, but when they found out they were going back out, they lost his paperwork. Stuarty shouldn't have been there the second time.
That's awful.
A year after returning from Iraq, the Black Watch were called up for their second tour of duty. Despite being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, David was sent back into combat.
It was just basically, there we go, there's your kit, see you later on, pal, go and get a tan.
David's second tour of duty in Iraq would prove to be extremely testing for him.
That has messed my whole life up.
We thought initially about doing a kind of anti-war, anti-Iraq piece, but the moment that it all changed for me was during the workshop.
In early rehearsals, some real-life Black Watch soldiers took part in a theatre workshop. Meeting the soldiers left an enduring impression on Black Watch director John Tiffany.
I realised that, my God, you lot have been betrayed with this more than any of us. And that's when I realised that we had a story in a way to tell, because that's not a story or a feeling that is held by a normal theatre-going audience. So what we were able to do then was challenge them on their preconceptions of the army and what soldiers were like.
Well, I think people's minds are usually made up about you if you're in the army. And the other way, hey, poor fucking boys. What a fucking shame. They can't do anything else. Can't get a job. They get exploited by the army.
That's the popular myth. But it's lovely the way the play starts when, as it Cammy, young Cammy comes out and says, "You think you're taking pity on me? No, I wanted to be a soldier. I chose to be a soldier. I'm here because I chose to be."
Oh, well, I want you to know. I wanted to be in the army.
That's a great opener. Just knocks all the prejudices on the head straight away.
I didn't want to portray the soldiers as the way that they're usually portrayed, as either exploited boys or thugs or something, some version of those things. And I just wanted to kind of give them a voice and say that, you know, the guys who have to do something that we don't have to do, thankfully, but it can be very nasty at times.
Most of the soldiers are in their very early 20s or even younger, and some of those men have not had a bank account before they joined the army. The officers help them to open their bank accounts. They do pretty well everything for them, and some of them haven't had good fathers, and acknowledge, if you get to talk to them enough, that this sergeant has been a father to them.
Richard Holmes was a platoon commander in the Black Watch and was responsible for around 60 men during his 2 tours of duty in Iraq.
Black Hawk. One of my jocks there, actually. Everybody joins the army to see active service, and there was active service going on, and we all wanted to have a part in it, really. I don't think it was naivety. I mean, we could see very clearly what was going on in Iraq. It's just, you spend so much time in training early on, you almost get a little bit bored of being in the classroom and running about firing blank ammunition on Salisbury Plain, and you want to go out and put these things to the test.
Black Watch was first performed as part of the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, playing to audiences a stone's throw from the official military tattoo and offering an alternative sort of spectacle.
I'd been to the tattoo years and years ago, and I just found it absurd, this kind of fetishizing of these men walking up and down.
It's most people's think that's what the Edinburgh Festival is.
We wanted to kind of set up the notion of the tattoo and then punch you in the stomach with it.
And the mass pipes and drums will now move into an anchor formation.
As the official tattoo revelled in the pomp and ceremony of the armed forces, just down the road, Black Watch served up an unalloyed critique of the military campaign in Iraq.
One of my images was, my God, imagine if we had a fucked up tattoo, which was people with arms hanging off and blood, and actually this is the reality of the parade here. Of course we didn't do that. Another one of my terrible ideas that luckily got left at the bottom of a bottle of red wine.
The boys got that wonderful testosterone-fueled machismo. Everywhere they go, they don't just walk, they stride purposefully. There's an energy to whatever they do.
In Edinburgh, we had a drill sergeant that came in to put the fear of life into you. So we kind of had that basis, which was great, because he taught us how to do the drill properly, how to salute properly, how to do everything to march. And he was quite proud of us at the end of it as well.
I find it extraordinary watching this group of actors. Genuinely, there were times when you'd go for a drink at the pub and they walk in, and they kind of walk in a pack, and you have to kind of pinch yourself and go, come on, boys, yeah. It's just a bunch of actors, don't take it too far.
I'm from Fife, yeah, I'm from Rosyth. I know a lot of people that went into the army and stuff like that. You stayed at school until you were 18 and then went to college, or you left school when you were 16 and joined the army. And that just wasn't the way that I wanted to go at all. With all the research that we've done now, looking into it, I'm quite sorry I never went. I could never see myself in any of these boys' situations at all, and I couldn't handle myself like any of them, at all. But I've got a lot more respect.
loved about it is its unashamed innovation, and particularly a beautiful scene when the soldiers received the letters, which blew me away. I thought that was stunning. And suddenly to revert into sign language, to take it out of just people reading, they actually got to the poetry of it, which is usually the soul of something.
It's the antithesis of the macho world in which they inhabit. There was a lovely gentleness come out of each of them, just the way they reacted to that, gentle hand movements and whatever they do. That was very, very touching.
But the most dramatic moment of theatre comes when the pool table from the pub in Fife becomes a virtual portal to Iraq.
They have wheeled the pool table on, but they don't wheel it off. But it's inconsequential because you're looking elsewhere. You're looking for the next thing that's going to happen. You just hear the bass ripping. And a hand emerges, dressed in army gear. And you just think, fuck me, what is that?
Later in the play, the pool table again transforms itself into a military vehicle, the Warrior. In Iraq, Black Watch soldiers had to cope with living out of these cramped wagons for weeks on end.
Fucking hot.
You're just fucking lucky it's not the fucking summer.
60 fucking degrees it was in here.
50 outside, 60 in here.
Stuck for fucking days on fucking end with the hatches shut.
There's a lot going on in the back of a Warrior. It's a very confined space, bunched in together. You're wearing body armour. You can't see anything because there's tiny little windows and you're not anywhere near them.
Let's get fucking out of here! Sit fucking down!
They're always in the same vehicle, cleaning it out, maintaining the equipment when they're back at camp. But there's a lot of gallows humour among them.
Are you a fucking vegetarian, like?
No.
You sure? You need to eat some fucking meat, pal, eh?
The play, I think, just hits the nail on the head, really. It just gets the jocks to a T.
I actually thought that I was sat there watching sort of a section of jocks interacting.
Cheese on fucking toast.
Aye. You can't have cheese on fucking toast. How no?
Because you fucking can't.
How fucking no? Well, that's not fucking Indian, is it? What's fucking food?
The swearing, yeah, there's probably less swearing in the play than what actually comes out, but yeah, it's all there. That's exactly how they are.
I just want fucking cheese on toast.
Well,
okay?
you can't have cheese on fucking toast.
I fucking can.
You fucking can't.
I thought he captured that pretty well from my experience of soldiers, although I have to say that they didn't swear quite as much when they were talking to me as they appear to in the play.
Well, fuck it! That's the first thing I'm having as soon as I get back!
Yeah! You're a fucking fanny!
3 months into their second deployment in Iraq, some of the Black Watch were preparing to come home when they received surprising news.
A Company was certainly getting ready to go home. Everything was packed, all the wagons were cleaned. We were practically sitting on our bags when it was announced on the television that in actual fact we weren't going home, we were going up north to help the Americans.
The Black Watch were to travel north to relieve an American battalion in an area south of Baghdad, so notorious for insurgency that it had been dubbed the Triangle of Death. This was widely seen as the most difficult deployment that any British troops had faced in Iraq so far.
It was a military decision taken in the context of a military operation where we were working alongside close coalition allies.
But getting up there will be no mean feat. On the ground and in the air, the British will be carrying out surveillance to make sure the route north for the Black Watch is as safe as possible. The journey will take them hundreds of miles through potentially hostile terrain.
It was a really, really difficult deployment for the Black Watch. At the time, the whole regimental reorganisation was happening, and there was a real political shift in Britain that the war was becoming significantly more unpopular than it had been before.
There was a lot of anger. You know, a lot of people thought, you know, I should be going home, and who's sending us up here? You know, is it the commanding officer that's volunteered us, or is it the government, or, you know, who's doing it? But then, obviously, you know, there's a hierarchy, and the hierarchy kicks in and just says, well, we're doing it, and so let's just get on with it.
Many of the people that I met wanted to put their training to the test. They wanted to go beyond the training field and to see the reality of conflict and combat.
Don't know what to expect and if anything's going to happen when we get there.
It's hardly surprising some of these troops are a little apprehensive. After all, they're about to fly into one of the most dangerous areas of Iraq's Sunni heartland.
The redeployment to Camp Dogwood had caused great anxiety in the regiment. Lieutenant Colonel James Cowan, the commanding officer of the Black Watch in Iraq, was himself concerned, as was confirmed when the Daily Telegraph published leaked emails he had sent home. Words taken from these emails are included in the Black Watch play.
You said that in my last email I sounded worried. Well, here we are in Camp Dogwood, and the task does look quite challenging. There have been so many hacks and TV crews flapping around us on the way north, I expect every lunatic terrorist for miles around to descend on us like bees to honey. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd been in and mapped our positions before we got here. I hope the government knows what they've got us into. I'm not sure they fully understand the risks.
Camp Dogwood was one corner of a huge Iraqi military installation. And I don't think they knew quite how difficult it was going to be when they got there.
As one young soldier said to me, we train hard to fight easy, but the fighting has not been that easy.
Every day they were being mortared in the camp. There was this constant knowledge of suicide bombers beyond the sand walls, and a real feeling, you know, that this was different. A real feeling that this was a different conflict to the one that they'd been fighting in the south.
It was very different. I mean, a lot of people put it to fighting ghosts. We never saw anybody. I mean, we hardly saw an insurgent for the whole time we were there. We'd sit in camp, we'd get, you know, incoming from mortars or rockets. You'd go out, somebody would, you know, there'd be a improvised explosive device go off, or there'd be a suicide bomber, but they appeared out of nowhere. You know, the suicide bomber would wave, and the next thing you know, he'd blow himself up.
In Camp Dogwood, it became more an exercise in survival than spreading democracy amongst the Iraqis.
Hey, Johnny, I want you to take your trips.
The Black Watch handed out leaflets. We are soldiers from Scotland, they said, and we are here to build peace and security.
When you look at these guys on the ground, you begin to wonder who's the occupier and who's the occupied. In some ways, these guys are more vulnerable, less informed than the Iraqis that they're theoretically occupying.
The infidel shall be attacked at the rising of the sun and at its setting, and when he unpacks his decadent western sun block.
And one of the things that you can see very, very strongly in the Black Watch play is the incredible distance that exists between the British officials and soldiers on the ground and the Iraqis. Iraqis barely feature in that play.
Did you have much contact with the Iraqis? What the fuck have the fucking Iraqis got to do with anything?
That sense that we were protecting ourselves, looking after our own agendas and interests, rather than treating the Iraqi government as though they were our equal partners in the whole endeavour, I think doomed it.
I thought you said you were interested in us. I thought this was about our story.
I can't write for an Iraqi. You know, it's up to Iraqis to write about their experience of this war. And the attitude of saying, oh, let's, you know, let me write an Iraqi voice in this, and how terrible they must be feeling about what we've done to them and everything, is exactly the same attitude that makes you invade their country in the first place, to try and tell them how to run it.
Just days after arriving in Camp Dogwood, the Black Watch paid a heavy price.
3 soldiers of the Black Watch battle group have been killed near Baghdad in a coordinated attack at a vehicle checkpoint. The troops were targeted by a suicide bomber and then came under mortar attack.
This was the biggest single loss of life the Black Watch has sustained in Iraq to date.
It wasn't just a random event. They were lured into a trap, effectively. A Warrior armoured vehicle was damaged. Another Warrior armoured vehicle came to help it out, also got into trouble. The suicide bomber came up to this checkpoint and killed the 3 men.
You have a ZAP code, and each individual soldier has some letters and numbers which are assigned to him. Therefore, when that comes through the radio, you can identify who that individual is.
So when something happens, comes over the radio with the ZAP number of the folk involved and then the code.
So P1 is walking wounded, P2 is wounded, P3 immediate surgery, and P4 is dead or dying.
I was actually in the operations room of 4th Armour Brigade. We were listening in, if you like, as one of the command centres, and we were listening to the daily sort of reports which came down from there. And I knew one of them, yes. You turn inwardly. It's not a, let's all hold hands and give each other a cuddle. It's a genuine concern, and you just look out for each other.
To lose close friends in the way that happened is something that we will always remember, and our thoughts are with their families.
It was a horrific first week, without a shadow of a doubt. There were 1 or 2 people you had to keep an eye on because you knew that they had been to school together or they were great family friends. But you let people mourn, you let them go away and have the 10, 15 minutes to themselves. And you walk over, have a chat, everything all right? Yeah, fine. Listen, you're here, you're not going home, this is your job. So, pull your socks up and get on with it.
There's a real professionalism in the British Armed Forces. When they were there, when there were fatalities, the Saltire was flown at half-mast, but just for 1 day, and then people got on with their normal lives.
There was deep concern, anger indeed, when the news leaked out a few weeks ago that soldiers of the Black Watch were to be sent north to help out the Americans in Iraq. The area in which they were to be deployed was described here as the Triangle of Death. So it has turned out for 3 of them, blown up yesterday by a suicide car bomber. But the leader of the Scottish National Party, Alex Salmond, says grief will be replaced by something else.
That'll give way to great anger across the country as we contrast the bravery of our soldiers
with the duplicity and chicanery of the politicians who sent them into this deployment.
Is that anger justified, Mr. Hume?
No, it is not. And I'm afraid the leader of the Scottish Nationalist comments demonstrate clearly there are no depths to which he will not seek to seek. And I can't understand why he does this. I cannot understand why someone should seek to take political advantage about the tragic deaths of 3 brave men and their interpreters.
These are professional soldiers. They'll do their job regardless of the danger. They're among the finest infantry soldiers in the world.
Tony Blair said he'd been very lucky to have led the greatest nation on earth.
Rose Gentle lost her 19-year-old son, Gordon, in a similar roadside bomb. Nearly 3 years on, she runs the Military Families Against the War campaign.
Tony Blair.
He makes me feel sick. You can invite all these pop stars and God knows what into his, but you can't invite the parents in that they've lost their sons.
I will tender my resignation from the office of Prime Minister to the Queen.
The man's just an insult to this country. He's an insult to your boys.
I've been Prime Minister of this country for just over 10 years.
He says he'd be proud of his own boy if he wanted to go to Iraq. I heard that. So I told Tony Blair, I've got 2 uniforms lying in there if your son wants to go to Iraq. You can come and borrow them. And he's never attended one funeral either.
Hand on heart, I did what I thought was right.
I'm going to send him a farewell card. All the signatures of the families, all the boys' names in the next line.
Back in 1997, at his first NATO summit, he had held out a very different prospect.
Mine is the first generation, able to contemplate the possibility that we may live our entire lives without going to war or sending our children to war. That is a prize beyond value.
Gordon says, Mum, if I join the army, I can get out of Pollock. He says, I'll be able to travel and I'll get my career and my driving licence. But I wasn't really that keen on him going. About an hour after he'd done his passing out parade, He says to us, I think we're going to Iraq. And I just looked at him, well, how Iraq? That's your first posting. You've only done 24 weeks training. Why Iraq? The uniform's off, you still think, he's still a kid. He's only 19. He's still a young boy.
The last time that Rose saw her son was when he left for war on the 15th of May, 2003.
Gordon got on the chain, he jumped back off, and I was like, love you, you watch yourself. He's like, Mum, I'll be okay. So I gave him a kiss and a cuddle, and I was like, love you, son. He's like, love you too, Mum. And as we were walking away, I turned around and says to his dad that night as well, I says, Gordon's not coming back.
You can go into an operation which is misguided, which doesn't make sense, but as an individual, you can show courage, you can be honourable, and you can be proud of what you did. That is the strange paradox of being a soldier.
Oh, they said we'd be home by Christmas.
Aye, you didn't fucking believe that shite, did you?
Every day, Ken, you question that you're like, what we doing here, Ken, when we going home?
We're taking cover, Sergeant!
They should withdraw all the troops for Iraq and let them get on with it. Let them sort it out. They wanted us out of there, so why you were still there?
The war is over! Fuck it, man. Is it? Aye. So what the fuck are we doing here?
If someone could have explained it, then they'd have been quite happy. But no one at any point could explain what the reason for this was.
We've been wondering about that, eh?
Aye. It's our turn to be in the shite. But we've had 300 years of being in the shite. If you didn't like shite, then you shouldn't have bothered fucking joining.
But nobody in the chain of command was explaining it because they were as unhappy about this. But there was always that point that they have to do what they're told, or they're not the army.
I hope the government knows what they've got us into. I'm not sure they fully understand the risks.
I don't think I have the right to say that I'm angry with the government because I was wrong. I supported this invasion. I was wrong to do so. So it would be disingenuous of me to attack other people for making the same mistake. But I think it was a wrong decision.
I didn't feel betrayed at all. I'm sure there'll be one or two people who did, but it is not our place to get mixed up in politics.
In Dogwood, nearly a month had passed since a roadside bomb had killed 3 Black Watch soldiers, and there was an edgy atmosphere in camp.
As far as the individual soldiers were concerned, there was genuine, they'll never admit to fear, but genuine apprehension about going out on the patrols that they were going out on after those deaths.
Obviously a bit apprehensive. I mean, no one knows if we're going to be next, who's next. Hopefully no one will be next now after what's happened.
Facing constant mortaring and the ever-present risk of suicide bombers, the Black Watch decided to go on a major offensive. They targeted an area on the opposite banks of the Euphrates, thought to be the hiding place of local insurgents. At home, the amalgamation of the Scottish regiments had been confirmed. So this was to be the final attack undertaken by the Black Watch as an independent regiment.
Fucking shite fight to end with, though, eh?
I was in the commanding officer's vehicle and spent the night with him. There was a real sense of history, and he made this quite stirring speech to his officers the night when he was briefing them before the battle.
This may be the last battalion attack that the 1st Battalion, the Black Watch, Royal Highland Regiment, 42nd of Foot, will mount.
Let us make sure it goes as well as anything we have done in the past, and is one we can be proud of.
The piper played along the berm, this raised sand bank, as the warriors were all gathered in formation at nightfall, and it was, for the men who were there, a hugely emotional evening. When they went into the village, they were playing pipe music from the speakers on the top of the warriors.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Forward to 42nd!
There's nothing like it at 4 o'clock in the morning when you haven't had any sleep and haven't had any breakfast. And I think, every Scotsman there felt that.
We were so geared up for that operation, it was untrue. Everybody was just on the ball, everybody was excited, there was a real buzz. Everybody was up for it.
What they planned and what they carried out was an unannounced assault, hard knock on a village. The BBC cameraman who took the pictures of that assault told me that it was the most dangerous thing he'd ever done, to get out of an armoured vehicle in the middle of the night and to film people assaulting a village.
There was little subtlety to it. The Black Watch had not come to win hearts and minds, they'd come to take prisoners.
Sit on their arses, hands on their heads, and keep them quiet, all right? No talking.
It is difficult and confusing work, moving house to house, and there are more than 50 houses to clear in this complex.
After that attack, a huge feeling of relief, and no more mortars or rockets came into the camp.
On the 28th of March 2006, the Black Watch lost its independent regimental status, becoming one battalion within the new Royal Regiment of Scotland. The amalgamation was said to reflect recruiting difficulties and to combat the inefficiencies of smaller units. The Black Watch Battalion will continue to recruit from its traditional heartland, and soldiers can still wear their legendary red hackle.
I'm sad because I think these units were very, very functioning. They should have been judged by their results, and they were doing a very good job.
Whether it had to happen or not, it was appalling timing. You know, we were out there getting stuck in, and but meanwhile back home they were saying, okay, but by the time you come back, you know, you will have you will no longer be the Black Watch as we know it.
May 2007. A company of the new Black Watch Battalion is back in southern Iraq on another deployment when the Black Watch play arrives in Dingwall on the final leg of its Scottish tour. This is a fitting Highland setting with its own proud military history. Rose Gentle and her husband George have travelled to Dingwall to see the play.
I had actually turned the telly on that says a British soldier had been killed, and it showed you the body lying on the ground. But you couldn't see his face because somebody was covering it. And I found out 4 hours later it was actually Gordon that I'd seen lying on the ground. That's a picture that still haunts me, is actually seeing him lying dead on the ground. And you feel you should have been there, you should have been the one that was holding him when he was dying, or you should be the one that's been dead first, not your son. I know I'll never get Gordon back, but if we feel we can help another family and say this boy has come back and is here depressed, if I can help one of the boys, well, I've done something in the memory of Gordon by helping the young lads that's come back. And I think maybe a play like this, what I've heard, maybe we'll bring it out and people will say, well, these boys do need help. And these boys are not just numbers, there's people. It's somebody's kids, somebody's dad. They shouldn't be forgotten, they should be helped.
4-4, all right, aye.
Former soldier David Ironside has also travelled to Dingwall to see the play. Despite being diagnosed with post-traumatic stress, David was sent back to Iraq on a second tour of duty with the Black Watch. After 5 months, he had to be evacuated home and never made it to Camp Dogwood with the rest of the regiment. It has taken 2 years for David to come to terms with his experience of combat.
I was a nervous wreck. I couldn't talk. I was really mentally unstable. Obviously, it wasn't my decision to send me home, it was the doctor's decision. Still, the guilt of being home and then getting told that one of your pals have died or been killed or been injured, and that is gutting, it's a horrible feeling. I felt as though I should have done more, and it's hard to explain it, but basically being more of a man. Unless you've been there and done it, nobody will understand, but hopefully this play will demonstrate some things that has went on, and hopefully they'll be more aware of things that did. I'm on about my family, they'll be more aware of things that did happen and I did go through, so that they could help me help myself. I need comfort, and it sounds a wee bit no manly, but everybody needs a wee bit comfort now and again, eh?
Sergeant. Yep. Colonel. Yep. Grant. Sass!
Don't come in, nobody's having a shit. We haven't got any mates.
The subject matter of the play appeals to me. The regiments that have been recently in the news as well, I think it's all kind of a very current topic.
The reality is this is real people, it's real effects it's having on real lives of young men from Scotland.
The show was recommended to me because it made someone cry, and I thought if a show can affect somebody in such a way, it's got to be worth seeing. So.
When we have actual squaddies or ex-squaddies or what have you that come in and see it, that's the hardest thing to play to, and the hardest group of people to play to. Because your people that come and see theatre, they just want to see a spectacular. The boys that have been out there, they want to see some truth and some realism.
I think one of the geniuses of this play is that it shows the predicament of soldiers in Iraq fighting an unpopular war but doing it in a professional way. And I think they humanised people who sometimes are not understood in society generally.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the unique setting of the Highland Football Academy. It's almost time for the thrilling moment when the gates swing open. The unforgettable first sight and sound of the massed pipes and drums. Ladies and gentlemen, may we present the Black Watch.
Welcome to this story of the Black Watch. Mind, it was brilliant with the Iraqis. They'd follow you down the street and that going, red flowers, red flowers.
Some of the antics that the boys actually did, that is just typical boys, that's typical squaddies. I can see Gordon actually doing the same things as what the boys done.
Red flowers. Oh, what a cunt, eh? What fucking country did you invade, Roscoe? What? Was it fucking Wales?
The play builds towards the shocking dramatisation of the roadside bomb that killed 3 soldiers during the Black Watch's deployment to Camp Dogwood.
The car could just stop and then come zooming towards you. You've got a matter of seconds to get out of the place, or boom, and that's how a few of my friends were killed because of a roadside bomb.
And the sergeant, right? He'll be channeling his inner traffic warden. Hey, hold on. I think they found someone in this cunt's car.
I hope it's porn.
Mother Uniform 3362, P4. Mother Alpha 5502, P4. Foxtrot Romeo 5561, P3. Foxtrot Romeo 5561, P4.
Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, very moving.
And if ever there was a theatre production to make you think about the futility of war.
Brought a tear to my eye. Makes you realise what's going on. You didn't think.
It was the best piece of theatre I've ever been to. It's brilliant.
very provoking and very emotional.
Brings you down to ground, doesn't it?
Just a play, but
Well, it's powerful, isn't it? It is really powerful. I think a bit the end gets me, seeing the bit you see them getting blown up. It really gets you. I think I've stopped shaking now. My whole body's shaking.
obviously got a wee bit upset at some bits, but brilliant, down to a T.
Gordon, he never came back. He ended up like the end scene that you see in that play, blowing up. I think Gordon would probably say the same thing. Mum, that's exactly what's happening over there.
Some bits I felt like I was there again, ken, and I knew what was going to happen next, and I knew, well, I ken it was only actors and that, but I knew how they were feeling, ken.
It's really emotional. Ken obviously seen that, and it brought tears to us all, even David, and that just makes you realise what he has been through.
Brilliant. Really good.
I don't know what to say to David now, because things that I've said in the past are like, oh, it'll be okay. That doesn't seem to work anymore now. I hope it helps him. I hope it brings an end to it. Or you can bring an end to it, but I hope it brings a closure to it for him.
You feel you can't help them, you want to help them, you might just give them a big cuddle and say, we'll help you. And you feel you can't do nothing. And that's how I feel, as if I'm letting people know what is happening. I'm saying, well, I'm trying to do something for these boys. Go and watch this play, and I'll let you understand what these boys are going through.
No, I've not really sat down and watched a play before, but no, it was pretty good.
Wasn't like a play for?
Nah, it was...
And some bits it was like being there again, ken, you realise a wee bit more, be able to start putting things together about, like, my past.
Especially proud of David.
It's not.